So I went to Indianapolis and did that, and that was awesome. My boyfriend at the time, husband, is from Indianapolis too. His family was there. They would support me when I would be an exhausted mess crying because I had gone on an hour and a half of sleep for 4 straight days. And you know, and I had not a penny to my name. And by the way, when I was working in South Bend, I had not a penny to my name, and was so therefore working early mornings there, and then at night I was working at Colorado Steakhouse in Mishawaka. And so I would go from being on TV to passing out steaks again. And so it was quite the conversation when they recognized me from the weather report, but I'm asking them how they like their steak. It was cool. So, but what's the point? I couldn't afford it. I didn't tell my parents how much I was making because they would have freaked out and sent me money. And I didn't want help with my rent or my car insurance or anything else. And I'd have $2 left at the end of the week, but I wanted to do it on my own. And so I worked those extra hours and waited tables again. And that's probably one of the things I'm most proud of, is that not one single person helped me in that way, that financial way. I wanted to prove that I could do it and owe nobody anything. And I was able to do that. Indianapolis was great, but it was tough because there were 4 of us. I was the 4th one. I was the youngest one. There had not been, I don't know how many, but not many female sportscasters there at all. Not many black sportscasters there at all in the past. And I was given a hard time, and not really by athletes as much as by my peers there, working at other stations and working at my station in particular, and it was pretty devastating. And I was different then. I was much nicer, and I wouldn't stand up for myself and let some things happen. And the turning point for me in Indianapolis was one time I went in and asked for, I just wasn't making ends meet. I was making $21,000 a year, working 60 hours a week, and I said, listen, I have a contracted raise coming up. It's like $1,500 in 6 months. If you could forward that to me now, I can pay off this bill, and I'll be okay, and you don't have to ever give me a raise again for the next 2 years. Like I was, and he said, okay, I'll think about it. And a couple weeks later, the news director called me in and said, we thought about this, and you don't deserve it. You're not worthy of a raise. And I said, well, what do you mean not worthy? I mean, I'm doing what you ask. If you don't think I'm good enough, that's fine. But what do you mean not worthy? And he's like, we just don't know if you have what it takes, and you're just not worth it. So whatever that means, there's better ways he could have phrased it, certainly, to a 24-year-old kid who's busting her butt to do whatever crazy shifts all week they're changing. But that told me a lot. And so when he said that, and I was devastated, and went home and called my parents and called my boyfriend and I was like, I'm done. And that moment changed me. And I got an agent, which, when you're making no money, how can you give them money? But I found a way because I needed help getting out. And she got me to Tampa, Florida. So I went from Market 85 in South Bend, which there's 200 and some television markets approximately. So 85 was a big starting place for someone with 0 experience. 85 to 25 in Indy to 13 in Tampa. And it was an amazing experience, and I was reporting and producing and anchoring and doing all of the above, and then I got a call from the Fox affiliate. That's when they were starting out with the Fox Sports Net Regionals, and now there's Fox Sports Midwest, and I was Fox Sports Florida. It was just beginning in 2000. I was doing that at the same time, and then Comcast Sportsnet in Washington, D.C., Baltimore, they were starting that up. So I helped get that off the ground in 2001, and had a choice between covering the Ravens or the Redskins. I said, if I'm coming here, that's fine, but I have to have a beat. I want an NFL team. And I had a choice because I was one of the first people there, and I chose the Ravens over the Redskins easily, even though the Redskins are the Redskins and they have the history and all that. Had my first child in 2002, little girl, and at that time, we were looking into daycare and all that stuff, and my point in this story is that you don't have to choose, ladies and gentlemen out there. I've had a lot of young men ask me this too, because you have to sacrifice a lot to get to where you want to go in any business. But I think in particular in many ways in broadcasting, and I know a lot of women, 40-year-old women, older, who are single and who have chosen, and they're doing great, and they're making a lot of money, and they're in the position they want, and they have all this, but then they go home alone. And that's fine if you want that, but there's a lot of us who want the family life too. And from how I was raised and what I knew I wanted, I refused to not have that personal side too. Yes, it's been my dream and my job and my goal, and I've accomplished it, and I'm so proud, and I love what I do. But I'd walk away today if there were ever a conflict between family and work. it would devastate me, but it's a no-brainer. So that's the one thing that one of many things I really want you to take, is that you don't have to make a choice. You'll have to make sacrifices. Everybody does. But what are you willing to give up? And you're going to have to give up something. My husband's a full-time stay-at-home dad. He went to IU. He has 2 degrees from here. And he hasn't, per se, used those degrees since our first child was born 8 and a half, almost 9 years ago. Is this what he set out to do in his life? No. No. Heck no. He hadn't changed a diaper in his life before our first kid was born, and let me tell you, it was not a pretty sight to watch him change his first diaper. I was like, oh my God, how is she still, what are you doing? How am I going to leave you home with this? But he learned. And what did he do? So he sacrificed his entire career, his schooling, because it was the best thing for us. I had a hard time too. I'm the traditional upbringing. My mom stayed home most of the time, and I wanted to do that for my husband too, and I wanted to be the room mom, I wanted to do all these things. Somebody has to work. It just so happened that I made more money. It's the only reason why it was me. I had a hard time accepting that too. I felt like I was a bad mom, and the other moms were judging me, and so you sacrifice something. What is it to you? And you don't have to know that now, because I didn't know it till I got into it. But as you're going, don't ever forget about what's really, really important to you. And there are people out there, men and women, who are fine with being single forever, and congratulations. Maybe that's the easier way to go. But that's not what I wanted. So just know that you don't have to sacrifice that. I've since had 2 more kids. So they're 8, 6, and 4. And they're psychotic. They're crazy. I mean, they're making me, like, they're going to be the end of me. They really are. So if I don't show up one day, you know why. Because they're exhausting. But I was leaving yesterday, and I left in the afternoon so I could take my daughter to ballet because it's watch week. And so you get to come in the class for, like, only twice a year you get to do this. And she's the 4-year-old and twirling and doing all, and I thought I'd rather get in really late and be tired than miss this day, So, and I have guilt. Oh my God, I have guilt every day of my life for being at work instead of being at the Brownie meeting, or seeing my son's basketball when I'm at my daughter's riding. So know that you're never going to be able to be perfect at anything. Because if I didn't have that, then maybe I'd be even better on ESPN. Maybe I'd be even better and not pronounce the hockey name wrong on Tuesday, which is still bothering me, And so just know that you're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices. I actually, and then I'm going to wrap this up for questions, because we have, 45? Awesome. I actually got an offer from ESPN in 2004. And I went up for it. You have to audition. I mean, you go up there and you don't just, they know you and they've followed your career and they know what you can do on the air, but you have to get up there and do highlights, and they make you write all this stuff, and then they pretend like it was an accident when the tape doesn't roll and see how you react. And they're taping it, and there's a bunch of bigwigs up in the room watching and judging you, and then you come out and they just don't say anything to you, and it's awful. But when I auditioned in 2004, I was out to here. I was 2 weeks from having my second kid. I was like, waddling in. And I was so not focused on this, and I did fine. Maybe that's why I did well, because I was like, whatever, I don't care. Take this and do what you want with it. I have a job if you don't like me. But I got the offer, and it was a pretty good offer. It wasn't probably what it should have been, but it was their first attempt with me, and you know the game, and you have an agent who does the talking for you, which another topic that I'll talk about later if you want me to. Agents are scary, but necessary. And then they offered me the job, and I turned it down, and I was scared to death to turn it down, because I had heard that you could get blackballed if you turn down ESPN. Who turns down ESPN, And that was my dream since 8th grade, and I'm saying no. But I didn't feel confident in my ability to give it 110%. I had one kid that was 21 months old when I was having my second, and I was overwhelmed as it was, So how could I go to a new job, much less ESPN, much less SportsCenter, where everyone's watching, and not be totally focused? So I took a chance, and I turned it down, and my agent was not pleased. But that was the best thing for my family at that time. And I did have an offer from my current job to stay again for 3 more years, and I took that. But I remember thinking I might regret this for a long time, career-wise, but family-wise, I knew it was the right thing. So then I had another kid to stop that, and I finally figured out how it happens, I think. And so oh, is that called again. ESPN called again. And I knew. Like, I'd kind of done my time at Comcast Sportsnet, and it was amazing. I mean, that's where I feel like I grew so much professionally. Being able to be in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore market, big market, whatever it is, 8, 7, something like that. But we're a regional network, and so we're on DirecTV, and we're across the country, across the world. If you have, DirecTV or whatever the other one. What's the other one? DirecTV and, Dish Network, sorry, yes. And so they had made an offer again, and it was much better, and it was the right timing. And we went, and I was scared to death again, because it's still ESPN. And unfortunately, my first time on the air at ESPN was the lowest point of my career. And then they started the weekday morning sports centers, and then they didn't have a spot for me. And so once again, update anchor, and then Hannah Storm or Josh Elliott or Chris McKendry, they're always gone, and so I would fill in. And then last fall in September, they moved me over to Weekend Morning Sports Center, which I love. I'm not a weekend person. I have 3 kids. It's tough to miss those mornings at home when the kids aren't at school, when you're not screaming at them to eat their oatmeal and get on the bus. But I only work till about 1 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays, so I'm up really early. Sunday mornings I have to be there by 4:30 or 5, and it's painful when it's 8 degrees outside and it's pitch black. But whatever, I'm able to be home more actually with this schedule. And weekend mornings, everybody's home. I mean, the ratings on the weekends, for obvious reasons, are really big. And that's not what motivates me. What motivates me is to have a home. And my home right now is those weekend mornings, which happen to be some of our best and biggest shows. And I love my co-host, David Lloyd. Very unassuming and just so good and so professional. Producers are great. Everybody is phenomenal. And I'm so honored and blessed to have the job that I set out to do in the 8th grade. So I have a million other stories. If you'd like, I can share. Ask me anything. I think you guys obviously know. You're here. You've made the effort. Nothing comes easy. Nothing comes easy with this business or anything else. And, just know you're going to have to probably work hard, work long hours, be broke for a long time. But at the end of the day, if you're doing what you love, it's okay, right? I think so.